Hello, I'm Dr. Gretchen Lewis-Snyder, and I'm here with Dr. Paige Nelson. We're with Blossom Whole Family Therapy and Child Psychology Center. We're going to talk to you today about how to build your resilience in the face of stress. We originally, this is actually the second in a three-part series that we have done with our community partner, Mount Olivet Church in Plymouth. And we originally, this is the second of two of those presentations. And so when we did this originally in February of 2017, Dr. Carla Berkeley was also present, and she and I worked with adults in the group, and Paige worked with the youth. And this presentation is really specifically geared towards teenagers and preteens getting ready to be teenagers. And so we wanted to make this available in a podcast to make it more accessible. And so this is that. So let's just start talking, because when in the first in part one of this three-part series, we talked a lot about stress and what it is and how people experience it. And we threw a couple seeds out about what can be done, how people can, what they can do to manage stress. And in this presentation, we want to focus a lot more heavily on that side of things. So to do that, let's first think about how do people bounce back in the face of stress? Like, what does make them more resilient? And Paige, you see a lot of teenagers, and so you help them a lot with this. What are some of the key things that you found that when teens really have those things in their life, they are able to manage stress pretty well?
Well, there are a number of things that research and our own clinical practice has shown to be really helpful in helping teens as well as adults be more resilient. And one of those things is being more self-aware. So that's really noticing what the signs and symptoms of stress are, and also recognizing that those different things and the fact that you are stressed out is going to impact how you behave, how you react to different things, and how other people see you.
Well, that makes sense, because I can imagine too that as a teenager, you've had the experience of being in the presence of other stressed out teenagers.
Right.
And have likely experienced being stressed out yourself. So you kind of know, I would suspect that a lot of the kids listening get this and
Absolutely
know exactly what we're talking about here.
Right. School is extremely stressful, and there are a lot of different pressures that are going on. And one of the things that we will talk a little bit about is how other people's stress impacts your own. So stressed out parents are also going to make more stressed out kids.
Yes. That was a theme that we definitely were hearing.
Definitely.
Yeah, during session one. Yeah.
Another thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about in depth is enlisting your support team. So that is going to be something that you do, not only reaching out to people in your family, but also reaching out to other supportive adults in your life, such as teachers or guidance counselors or people at church, but also reaching out to your friends and knowing how and when to talk to those different people.
Yes, and that's so critical, because there are, I think in my experience, and this maybe is true for you also, kids tend to want to talk to other kids.
Right.
And although there are a fair number that also are pretty comfortable talking to their parents, but sometimes there's some challenges bringing things to parents or other significant adults. And so it's nice that we'll have a chance to kind of really talk about that, because the reality is that as a teenager, there just are times that you're going to need the adult support.
Right.
And so knowing how to overcome some of those challenges could be very helpful. So let's take care of biology. What is that?
That is really focusing on making sure that you're taking care of your body. So sleeping the right amount, eating, exercising, and making sure to take some time to just breathe and relax and notice that whatever's happening right now is not the very end of the world.
So basically, it's doing all the stuff we know we're supposed to do,
exactly,
but don't always do.
Right. All the stuff you learned in health class.
That's right.
That is what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh, crap. All right. What about the self-care toolkit?
That is very much geared individually towards people. So having different things that you can do to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and having some of those de-stress tools. So whether that's going for a walk or taking a relaxing bubble bath, I mean, everybody's going to have a different thing that will work for them. And it's just good to have more than one thing in your toolbox so that if something doesn't work, you have something to move on to.
So it's really figuring out specifically what's going to work best for you.
Absolutely.
Personally. Got it. Yep. Okay, interesting. These last two are maybe a little surprising.
Right.
Helping others and do not have all the answers.
Exactly.
What?
So helping others, this is something that is very much based off of research as well. We have found that if you help other people and you're reaching out, you feel better about yourself. And it offers you an opportunity to kind of look at your own situation as compared to other people's situations, but then also be able to empathize with other people. So kind of take yourself out of your own situation and put yourself in someone else's shoes.
And my suspicion is that a lot of our listeners also have had this experience, even if it hasn't necessarily been intentionally. They've been that person to offer a friend support and have been able to feel good about that. Or maybe there have been some volunteer opportunities that they've done and just have felt good. And so, again, I think people, as they think about it, it makes sense. It actually does make sense why that is so helpful.
Right.
And then resilient people do not have all the answers.
I think that this one especially ties to the first two that we talked about, being self-aware, knowing that I don't know what to do right now, and also enlisting the support team. If we had all the answers, we would never need to talk to anybody else.
That's true. And so therefore would be maybe isolated, disconnected.
Exactly.
Which is problematic.
Right.
Because we're wired to need to be connected. Oh.
And so if we recognize that we don't have all the answers and then can go to other people to try to find the answers and find the support from other people, then we're going to be able to move forward together and not just by ourselves.
That's really interesting. And I think, again, even if you're one of those people who's reluctant to reach out, if you have had people reach out to you, I suspect you did feel a connection. You felt a connection that felt good to you when that other person reached out to you, that there was something that happened in the relationship that felt good to both of you.
Right.
And so that's an interesting thing to think about, especially if it's almost like, so if you are one of those people that's reluctant to ask for help, it's thinking about, you understand that you are then denying your friends the opportunity to feel those good feelings you feel when they come to you.
Right.
So that's an interesting thought. So we had done a little survey when we did this originally with the youth at Mount Olivet, and they had written all sorts of interesting things about. We had asked them to write about, what's one thing you would wish the important adults in your life knew about stress, and they had some really interesting things to say about that.
Right. Yeah. A lot of the different things that they wrote down fell into three main topics. One of which is the symptoms, which is what we'll talk about now. One of which was the different ways that they want to deal with stress. And one was very specific advice for what they want their parents to do or not do with them.
Which just so you guys know, we actually have a separate adult presentation that we did, Carla and I did, with the adults, where we really did talk more specifically with adults about that and how to be good listeners. So that is also available on podcast. So if there's a significant adult in your life that you would like to get support. But so what did they say about how they feel when they're stressed?
So this really connected to our first presentation as well, where we really defined what stress is and how we can identify it in our everyday life. And so the teens said that when they are really stressed out, they feel tired, they're worn out, they have trouble concentrating and being really present in their everyday life because they're just so exhausted. On top of that, their muscles are fatigued and hurt, and they have headaches, and they just feel it all over in their bodies.
Yes. Yep. Definitely. And I hear that also from the teenagers that are in my office. You probably do
absolutely.
too. Yeah. And I suspect this is all familiar to the people listening as well. So what are the triggers? Like, what is stressing kids out?
Well, the big ones, and probably the most obvious are going to be homework and school and tests. And as teens are developing in this time, a lot of them are more focused on developing relationships with their friends and peers. And that can be stressful in and of themselves because there tends to be some drama involved in those types of friendships in high school.
There can be, yeah, and junior high.
And junior high, absolutely.
Yeah, possibly more so in junior high, or a different quality of it in junior high than in high school.
Different topics.
Different topics. Yep, different topics.
In addition, obviously, parent relationships, trying to become more individualized and learning the different rules of being a teenager or preteen, being late and disorganized, and what people think of them. They are more focused on, like, what am I doing and how are people looking at me?
So how common is how many teens are actually stressed out? Is this common? Is this uncommon?
It's extremely common.
It's so interesting because I don't know if you hear this from people that come into your office, from the kids that come into your office, but I hear it. They feel like they're the only ones. No one else is feeling this way.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I hear that 20 times per week.
Yeah, me too.
And so, and what we know actually is that stress is extremely common, and as actually probably, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you are thinking about stress, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but is more the norm than not.
Right.
It's actually the norm to feel this way. And I think that's an important message for anyone listening to hear, is that you are not alone. These things were reported by lots of kids just in a congregation, in a local congregation, like not anyone seeking out therapy. This was just typical kids. It was a sampling of typical kids in our local area. And so it's common, really, really, really common. I would like to be able to play this, but our technology doesn't allow me to actually record this and play this video. But it is really helpful. It's if you want to go on to YouTube, it's like a 2-minute video. It won't take a lot of time. But it's Why Stress is Good for You. Scientific American, Instant Egghead. So you can do a little search and pull that up. But it's great because it really talks about the physiology. It talks about how, what's really going on physiologically when you're under stress. And it talks about how when you take on reasonable challenges, what you're really doing is getting out of your emotional brain, getting up into that, that part of the brain that's right behind your forehead, that prefrontal cortex, and strengthening it. That prefrontal cortex, that's where the primary thinking center is. It's where your problem solving happens. It's where your ability to kind of act and take action and think things through and to be logical and rational. And so when you are taking on these challenges, getting out of your emotional brain, getting into that problem-solving mode, getting into the healthy thinking, which I'm going to talk about, which we talked about during session 1 and talk a little bit about more again today. You are making that part of your brain stronger. And when you make that part of your brain stronger, the small stressors no longer seem so stressful and overwhelming. They seem like just a regular part of life. They aren't causing distress anymore.
Right.
And so that's something to think about. We kind of think about stress as being so bad, but actually it doesn't have to be. It can actually help you become even stronger.
And it helps us motivate to continue moving forward.
It does. Right. It absolutely is a good source of motivation. So here's how we're going to kind of think about this today, right? This whole self-awareness and self-care. I think we really think about these as two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. You can't take care of yourself if you're not aware of what's actually going on with you, because you won't be doing the right things to help yourself. Or if you are doing the right things, it's by accident that you're kind of doing it that way, right? So within that, there's some big picture things like biology and relationships, some things that you can do just big picture overall to help yourself be resilient in the face of stress. But then there's those in the heat of the moment, like when you're actually in it, things that you can do to help yourself regulate emotions, and also the way you're interacting with others at that particular point in time. So we're going to kind of delve a little further into this. But let's just start with biology. You have an analogy that you use that I think is helpful.
So given how into technology teens are right now, it seems, and adults. Right. We're all kind of glued to our phones. And so I like to think of the body and the mind as like a cell phone. And these things that we care for, our biology, are like plugging in that cell phone. So as we go throughout the day, the battery, our bodies start to decrease. Our batteries start to get lower and lower. Stress is one of those apps that just kind of runs in the background and just sucks that battery life.
Mm-hmm.
And just like any other cell phone or any other battery that we use on a regular basis, we need to plug those in and charge those things in order to get them back to fully functioning. So these biology things are plugging in your body, plugging in your cell phone to recharge that.
That is interesting. Stress is like an app constantly running in the background.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have to relate to that, right? I mean, because it is. I mean, when you're really in stress, that really captures what that experience is like. Because even, I mean, people will say, the anxiety is always there. It's always there. Sometimes is less noticeable, and sometimes it's more noticeable, but it's there all the time. And so I think that's got to resonate with people. That analogy, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so eat, sleep, move, breathe. That sounds easy.
Right. And yet we barely ever do it the way that we're supposed to do it.
Yeah. So people have learned this though. People have learned this in health class. I know they do. So let's just kind of hit the highlights for people to kind of think about and really. So with respect to eating, what are some just helpful things for people to keep in mind about eating, healthy eating?
Start the day off with a good breakfast, because that is going to sustain you for the rest of the day.
That old wives' tale isn't such a wives' tale.
No.
And actually, research is bearing this out.
Absolutely.
Because it's what happens is that your brain actually metabolizes. It can metabolize protein and it can metabolize sugar. The problem with sugar, though, is that it can give you that kind of instant energy really high, but then you crash right down afterwards.
Right.
Protein, by contrast, is kind of gradually releasing throughout your morning. So it's kind of giving you a nice, steady release of energy that your brain can use and your body can use, particularly when you're at school and needing to learn and needing to pay attention. And so you're giving your body that kind of charge.
Right.
We're a little more complex than a cell phone.
Yes.
One charge doesn't fit all. Like it has to be. There's different ways of charging. So I would agree with you. Breakfast. And really starting your day off with something good, and then maybe even snacking throughout the day and having something handy that you can munch on throughout the day.
Right.
Would be helpful. All right, sleep. I know they've heard of it a billion times.
Well, adults, 6 to 8 hours, ideally closer to the 8 hours. Everybody's going to fluctuate on the amount that they need.
No, that's actually not true. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, that's actually not true.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. When they do in sleep labs, which, I mean, everything's perfect in a sleep lab. That's not really real life.
Right.
But in a sleep lab, when they are able to really address people's sleep issues and any kind of sleep disorders that they have, and they get on a really regular schedule, they go to bed at the same time every night, get up at the same time every morning. I can just hear the groans right now. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm not kidding. But it's interesting because when they do that, when people do that, they actually fall into, without any variation, like without any differences at all, 8 hours and then some weird number of minutes, like 13. I want to say it's 13 minutes. There's no variation. That's what adults fall into. 8 hours and weird number of minutes, like 13.
Weird.
So where people vary is how well they tolerate sleep deprivation.
Oh.
Some people tolerate it better. Mm-hmm. Some people not so much. I tend to be on the not so much side. And I'm betting there's listeners out there who can recognize people who tolerate it better and people who tolerate it worse. And they're probably people that fit into those categories out there. So that's interesting to think about. That's for adults. Now, there is more variation in people who are still growing and maturing because of all of the needs that your body has in growing and maturing and all that development that's still happening. Right. So in that there is some greater variation, but it's not 6 to 8. It's
no,
more.
It is 8 to 11.
Yes.
So those teens and tweens need a longer battery charge than us adults do.
Because their bodies are having to work a lot harder than ours are as adults. And then that's just the reality. And even within that, you guys have maybe already, kind of discovered this for yourselves. If you're going through a growth spurt, you are sleeping way more. Like it takes a lot of energy to grow.
Right.
And so so that's just good to be aware. I know you've heard it before, but it's you just really give it some thought and really think about it. Moving. I know this is another one. Moving your body.
Yes, exercising. And I think that's something that everybody has on their to-do list.
Yeah.
Is to get up and get moving.
Right. But that darn motivation. Oh man, that's tough.
Especially once you're sitting there and you're watching TV. It is just impossible to get off that couch and go run.
It is. It is. We follow the laws of physics. So bodies in motion stay in motion. Bodies at rest stay at rest. So what I work with people on when I'm seeing kids in session is if you're already up and moving, like what are the times of the day that you're already up and moving? That's where you need to attach move into that part where you're already moving, because let's face it, if you settle in onto the sofa to watch on Netflix marathon, you are not getting up. Like that's just not even reality, right? Unless there's something that some extreme force acts on you to get you up and off the sofa, right?
Like when mom grabs you and pulls you off the couch.
Right. That's right. And so natural times in your day. So like getting home from school, for example, you're already in motion. So before you chill out, that would be a time that you could get a healthy snack. Go for a walk, go for a run, go for a bike, I don't know, whatever the things are, do some yoga. You can decide and figure out what kind of exercise and movement is good for you. And you don't have to get locked into all or nothing thinking about it. Well, I don't have time for 20 minutes. I don't have 20 minutes to go for a walk, so I guess never mind, I won't move my body. Well, actually, if you only have 5 minutes, it's still more than 0 minutes. So, you could do the 5 minutes. You could do what you have. Work with what you've got.
So that's what you mean by all or nothing is some is better than none.
Right. Anything really is better than nothing. It's different, right? It's just start. Do something, right? Anywhere. Breathe. Well, that seems like a no-duh kind of a thing. Why is that on the list?
Well, being mindful of your breathing. So actually taking some deep thought out breaths. So you mentioned yoga, and a lot of times yoga is breathing and doing deep breathing, belly breathing.
Belly breathing.
Yes, the good old belly breathing. That is part of yoga.
Yeah.
And that's what helps you relax and let go of some of that stress in the muscles.
Because how do people breathe when they're stressed out? Do they have good breathing when they're stressed?
No.
Not at all, do they?
It is short and shallow and fast.
Yeah, that tends to be what it is. That's exactly right. So when you breathe the opposite, when you breathe in a relaxed and slow, fully into your belly kind of a way, it changes your physiology almost instantaneously.
Right. So more oxygen to the brain can't be a bad thing.
No. It's funny. I've known kids that have taken, because in some schools yoga is offered as a gym class, and so I've known some, really athletic young men that have taken it like, haha, I'm taking yoga. Only they got into it and like, oh my God, this is awesome. I feel so good after. I mean, I love when stuff like that happens, right? You do it to be funny, and then it turns out it's actually helpful. So, okay. So in the heat of the moment now, being self-aware and then being able to take action to take care of yourself in the heat of the moment. So thinking about, in the heat of the moment when you're really stressed out, where is your attention focused? What is it that you're thinking? Where's your mind at? And then how do you, if it's focused someplace that's not very helpful, how do you get it out of that place? How do you get it out of that place and into a more healthy way of thinking? So let's just talk about that for a minute. If anybody saw segment 1, this probably looks familiar to you, right? It's really the foundation for self-awareness. This whole idea about in any given situation that we're in, the way that we think affects the way that we feel, and likewise the way that we feel affects the way that we think. So if you're feeling stressed out, then it's easy to interpret every little thing as being highly stressful, as a big deal, right? Which causes you then to feel more and more stress, which then makes everything seem like an even bigger deal. And you have this whole negative self-feeding cycle. And, your actions are playing a role in this too. What do you choose to do? Do you feel that stress and then just get busy and just start taking care of business? Or do you sit and fret? right? And spin in your mind around and around and around again, right? These things are interrelated to each other and they impact us. And, we have some control over our thinking and we have some control over what we do. And we can use those two things to influence our emotions and to help regulate our emotions. But I want to talk a little bit more about thoughts because thoughts are really important. And I love things like this, right? In the first one, I had a color one that I did, but in this one, what do you see? And I don't know, Paige, what is the first thing you see? You've probably seen this before.
I see a bunny first.
You see the bunny first?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you able to see the duck?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep. But I've also seen it a million times.
Seen it a million. So you've had to kind of train your brain in order to see it both ways.
Right.
So there actually is both a duck and a bunny in this photo. And can you see both? Can you see both? They're both there. So if you're seeing the duck's bill are the same as the bunny's ears. The eye is the same for both, but the bunny's head is faced the opposite direction of the duck. So
so the bunny's facing the right side,
right,
and the duck is facing the left
side, right. And right. So the bill/ears are the bill/ears.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so I put things up here like this because our minds are easily tricked. They are easily deceived. It's easy to get locked into only being able to see things one way, when in fact, multiple things might be right at the same time. Multiple things that seem contradictory might be right at the same time. And it's easy to be tricked by that. And there's real life situations that happen all the time about that. And there's thinking actually that tricks us into feeling certain emotions that are really maybe disproportionate to the situation and what's going on. These are some of the common ones I see, and you see a lot of teens too.
Right.
Paige, what do you see a lot of in your?
The same thing.
Yeah.
All of these things are very, very common. All or nothing, I think, is a very popular one, as you kind of mentioned. It's like, if I don't do it 100% correctly, then I failed.
Right, then I failed. So that's all or nothing. It's perfectionism, right? It's catastrophizing,
right?
It's all of these things kind of rolled up in one. It's this way of thinking that is not helpful, and it's actually erroneous, right? That need to do things just so or forget about it. That sort of bleak pessimism about the future, or its close cousin catastrophizing, right? Where it's just like
everything is the end of the world.
End of the world. It's like huge deal.
It's horrible.
Shoulding. I love this one, right? Don't should on yourself or anyone else. Oh, he should do that. She should do that. I should do that.
Right. I should exercise.
I really should do that. Yeah. Right. You're setting this expectation that may or may not be realistic, but then you're always falling short. It's a constant falling short, which feels like crap.
Right.
It's not helpful. It's not helpful, and it doesn't actually help propel you forward and help you do anything to manage your stress. Assuming is another big one, that kind of jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, mind reading, assuming we know what is in other people's heads.
Exactly. I see this a lot in conflicts between friends they're the frenemies.
She just thinks. He just thinks.
Yeah, they hate me.
Right.
My teacher gave me that feeling great because they hate me.
Right. Right. So those are all assumptions. Unless you can actually open up someone's brain, head, skull, look inside and see the thought, right? You can't do that. No one can do that. And so these are mind tricks. These are things that trick you into feeling a certain way and then acting on that. That's not helpful. So let's flip it, okay? Let's think about how can we think in a more healthy way. And again, I did go over this, and that's in that segment 1. So, but just as a refresher, it helps to think about, okay, what's actually factual here, and what am I guessing about, and what am I assuming, and to sort of like sometimes literally mapping it out. This is an action you can take, right? Map it out, sort through. How do I do that? Like, what is actually true, and what am I guessing about? Chances are, if you're stressed, you've got a whole long list of assumptions and a short list of facts that you maybe haven't even fleshed out.
Right.
May not even be a comprehensive list of the facts. And you start really looking at all of the facts without filtering them. Things start to look very different. Very different. And less stressful, by the way, much less stressful. Ooh, control. I love talking about control. How many people like to control things that they can't actually control?
Well, it's less stressful. If I could just control everything,
Right.
I wouldn't have any stress, right?
You wouldn't, because everyone would just be doing exactly what you want them to do, and there would be no adversity. But of course, that's not reality. And
Shucks.
So then it's really frustrating, actually, because you put all this energy into wanting to control and trying to control things that you can't control. But in fact, when you shift your focus onto what you can control, which would be what exactly do we have control over?
Your own actions.
Ah, right. My own actions. And probably, I suppose, the way I think in a situation.
Yes.
So I can come in. Sometimes, you record live and it is what it is. You gotta love the phone. It's all right.
I have an awesome ringtone though, right?
And we just roll with it. See, that's in our control. We can decide to roll with it, or we could choose to panic. We chose to roll with it, right?
And put my phone on silent. That's also within my control.
Right. So we definitely can do that, right? Shift our attention to things we can control. And sometimes this means thinking about what do we want to put out into the world, and is what I'm putting out there something I can stand behind and feel good about? Because if it is, then actually I don't need to worry so much about what other people think, because I've thought about it already before I put something out there. I've thought about how to say something in a respectful way. I've thought about the other person's feelings in making my decisions about that. I get to control that, and then I get to decide how I'm going to respond in a situation. How other people, if I'm acting in a way that I feel good about and that I can stand behind, then the way that other people respond is their issue, not mine.
Right.
And that can be pretty liberating.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk a little bit about this last one, because we didn't talk about that so much in the first part of this series. And that is this a solvable problem? If it is, let's get to the finding solutions, because I think sometimes we have a solvable problem and all we do is sit and think about how horrible the problem is, and we never actually get to the point of solving it. But also sometimes situations are what they are, and we have to accept them.
Right.
And so let's just talk a little bit about that. So Paige, I don't know, in your experience, where do people get most hung up in problem solving?
Surprisingly, I think most people get hung up right on this first step here in identifying what the problem is.
Which seems, again, like a no-brainer. Well, duh, a problem is I'm not getting my homework done.
Right. But why?
But why am I not?
Right. There could be so many different problems within that one problem.
So true. Like
I forgot to bring my homework home.
Right.
I didn't write down the homework.
Right.
I left my homework at home even though I finished it.
Right.
But it's due right now.
Right. So there's a lot of points at which there could be a breakdown. And unless you understand, unless you really identified where the breakdown is happening or breakdowns, then the solutions aren't going to, unless you get lucky and happen to pick the solution, there's a good chance you're going to do things that aren't actually solving your problem and then don't quote unquote work you haven't actually solved what the problem is.
Right. Because you don't know what the problem is.
Because you haven't really figured out what the problem is. That's right.
Right.
And I agree with you. I see this all the time, and I especially see it in cases where the cause of stress is disorganization, poor time management, and that sort of thing. It's really, when we hit the pause button, take a step back, look at the big picture, and really start to break down, okay, what's happening, and step by step. Okay, so I'm sitting in class, right? I'm sitting in class, the teacher assigns the homework. What do I do? Well, I don't even hear it. Okay.
I'm talking to my friend.
Right. I'm talking to my friend and I hear. Or, I don't know. My mind is just elsewhere. I don't know. So, here, okay, that right there is a problem to solve. And there maybe are multiple solutions and maybe multiple components to a solution. So, maybe it's, okay, so is the teacher giving the instruction at the beginning of class or at the end of class? Right? And if you know that, then maybe that helps you kind of go, okay, I know I need to stop talking by such and such a time so that I can hear the assignment. Or the teacher's always writing it on the board. I just need to take a picture with my phone. And then I have a record when I get home of all that kind of stuff. Or my friend is always paying attention, right? I'll get the information from him or her.
Right. Or maybe I'm not even sitting in the right spot in the room, so I can't even hear the teacher assign the homework, or I can't read it from the board because I'm so far away.
Right. So you guys kind of get this, right? And I can't even tell you how many times this happens, where people have not hit the pause button, taken a step back, and really thought about, why is the problem a problem? What is going into it? What's contributing to that? Frankly, everything else falls into place. Once you do step one, we don't need to talk that much about the rest of this, because understanding the problem, everything else falls into place. It makes sense then what your solutions are going to be. I mean, oftentimes, I shouldn't say all, oftentimes though, the solutions do become much more apparent, the kinds of things that could be helpful.
I like your use of helpful.
Yes.
Rather than did it work?
Right. Because did it work is a tricky all or nothing.
It is. It is one of those mind tricks we talked about.
It is.
Because did it work? Yes or no?
Right.
If it didn't 100% work, then it failed, right? That's how that mind trick works, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how the mind trick works. In reality, what we know is that there's very few things that work 100%. Usually it's layering, right? It's doing this is helpful, so I'm going to do this. This is also helpful, so I'm going to do that. And it's like maybe a couple different things or several different things that you end up doing that make a big impact, but you need to do all of them together.
Exactly. So what about what I just did was helpful? And what can I take and move forward with?
Right, because that helps you continue in that problem-solving mode. And this is the sort of thing, when I was talking earlier about how stress actually can make you stronger, it's this process. This process, when you do this stuff and you practice it over and over again, just like any other thing that you practice, if you have an instrument that you practice and you get better and better, when you learn to ride a bike and you practice and you got better and better, you do a skateboard, right? You first got on it, it was a disaster, and then you kept at it and got better and better, right? This is how that works. Problem solving is no different. When you practice it, you get better and better, and the part of your brain that does it also gets stronger and stronger. Those connections get more and more powerful. And so some of this is having enough self-awareness to recognize when you're off track and into that healthy mind trick kind of thing, unhealthy and unhelpful mind trick thinking, and then bringing it back into the healthy. Every time you do that, every time you pick up your attention and put it back and deliberately put it on healthy thinking and problem solving, you are training your brain to do it more and more automatically. And your brain gets stronger and stronger. And instead of all those automatic negative thoughts that continually just pop up, like those boogermen on the Mucinex commercials, where they move in with their rug and their furniture. That's how I kind of think of those automatic negative thoughts as mind tricks, right? They barge in.
And then just do what they want.
Right? This is your eviction plan for those unwanted negative thoughts. So yeah, okay. So let's just think about, how might one go about practicing this problem solving? You could do this if you guys wanted to kind of think about this. Right? Mary is friends with both Jake and Sally. Mary hears Jake say mean things about Sally behind her back. What's the problem?
And you're Mary in this situation.
What's the problem? There could be a lot of different problems here.
Yes.
And it could depend on the quality of your relationship with Jake, the quality of your relationship with Sally. It could be, how much do you care about what Jake thinks about you? How much do you care about what Sally thinks about you? What are your core values?
Right.
Is there anything about this scenario that's bothering you? If so, what? Why does it bother you? Is there a core value of yours that it's triggering for you? Right? And again, what do you have control over, and what actions do you feel like you can stand behind? Because that's what you have control over, right? And so as you're thinking about how do I want to respond in this situation, or do I? Because a non-response is also a response. Those are things that you are maybe going to want to think about, but you can see how understanding the problem and clarifying it with yourself is going to help you know which responses you're going to feel the best about and that you're going to be able to stand behind in the best way. And so now let's say Sally finds out. And now Jake and Sally are in a fight. I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, not this exact one, but you know, you've got two mutual friends. Something goes down between them, and now they're bickering, and you're stuck in the middle.
Right.
It sucks.
Exactly. Because how do you know what to do?
Right.
Do you choose sides? Do you stay in the middle?
Right. Right.
What do you do?
What do you do? And so again, why is that feeling so uncomfortable to you? What is it about that situation that's causing you to feel so uncomfortable? What is it? What are the facts, right? Did someone do something wrong? Did somebody do something they need to own up to? Or was this just nobody really did anything wrong. It's just an unfortunate falling out, right? These are all important facts to consider. There is no automatic right, quote unquote, right way to respond in these situations, because there's so much that can vary. But you can see how understanding the problem and really giving yourself some time to think and think through what the facts are and about what your core values are is worthwhile, because it's going to help you know then what to do. All right. So let's just kind of take a moment to pause. Is there at this point anything that you guys as listeners want to improve on in the areas of your biology or your healthy thinking? And this can be helpful. You can hit the pause button. We're also going to attempt to break this up into smaller pieces. So it could be that you're listening to this already in a chunk, and in which case this is the last thing before this chunk is over. But taking time to identify what is there any one thing, based on the things that we've talked about so far, any one of those things that you would like to do better? And think about it being a manageable, small chunk piece that you want to be able to do better. Reasonable.
So a baby step.
A baby step. Right. Something realistic. Not, for those of you getting 6 hours of sleep, I'm going to go to bed at 8:30 so that I have come on. We all know that's not going to happen at first.
Maybe like one night, and then I'm like, okay, right. Going back to my regular routine.
So make it be realistic, okay? And then really think about why. Why would this be the thing that you're going to choose? What is it about this that you think is going to be so helpful? And then, is there anything that's getting in your way? If so, what? List those things out. This is identifying the problems, right? This is what this is.
Mm-hmm.
What are the barriers getting in your way? What are they specifically? And then, what ideas do you have about how to overcome them? How could you troubleshoot those and problem solve them? What would you need to do in order to set yourself up for success? Starting with making sure that number one is really reasonable and realistic. Pick something reasonable and realistic. So go ahead and take some time to really do this and give some thought to it. Coming up, we'll go talk more about self-awareness and self-care as it relates to the accept and cope. So when there aren't such solvable problems, what do we do at that point? So we'll see when we come back. Okay, so let's talk about what to do if we're talking about problems that just are what they are and really can't be changed or can't be changed that quickly. And so there's some coping and accepting you're going to have to do while change is evolving, right, and happening. So let's just talk a little bit about that. There's actually a number of different tools for one's toolkit that one can really think about. One is mindfulness.
Big word.
That's a big word, right? But I love the graphic here. Mindful or mindful, right? Because it really is different, right?
Absolutely.
To have your mind be full, and we all know what full mind is. That's what it is when we're just thinking.
Right.
Thinking. But if we become mindful, that's something different entirely. There's actually, it can be a very calming, centering, grounding kind of a thing to do to just help settle the craziness going on in our mind. And in just a few minutes, we're actually going to we're actually going to go through this together so that you can experience some of that mindfulness. And so looking forward to that. But also, sometimes it's just a simple matter of changing your activity. So Paige, what are some of the sorts of things that people might shift gears and begin doing that can be helpful in quieting their mind and changing gears and getting out of that negative thought loop?
Well, some of the things are kind of taken from some of the things that helped create a healthy body as well. So getting up and doing some of those physical activities that we talked about, whether that's going for a 5-minute walk or going swimming. But some of the things that you can do right in the moment when you're sitting at school. So whether that is counting the number of blue things in the room, doing some things that are right there in front of you. A lot of the times, I think that people don't get an opportunity to use their creative mind very often. And so one of the things that I like to encourage people to do is do something artistic related. So whether that's coloring or painting or sculpting with clay, just something that you can focus your mind on and be mindful so that you are very much focused and paying attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And I think too, this is where some of that self-awareness comes in, because when you're choosing an activity, there's things you can consider. I love what you were saying about the movement, because sometimes literally you need to get it out of your body.
Right.
And the movement is what allows you to get all of that nervous, nasty, gross feeling energy out. It's an outlet, literally, for it. But some of the activities that you're talking about, the coloring, the drawing, the clay, I always think about it's something that requires your whole attention.
Exactly.
In order to complete. Because when something requires your whole attention, instead of being monkey mind, right, hopping around from one thing to the next, you're all in. You're all in on that one activity. And that, it can be extremely settling and calming.
Right. Yeah. Very focused.
Right. In the zone. Right. And you guys maybe have activities that you get in the zone with, you know, skateboarding, basketball, hockey, those are sports, right? But for some of you, it is artistic. You're writing, your art, you're painting, you're drawing, coloring. I like coloring because sometimes people get hung up. I don't know what to draw. I don't know what to paint. So the beauty about coloring is that you don't have to get caught up and self-critical about not being able to come up with the idea. You just do what's in front of you. So sometimes that's a way in, at least to access and open up that creative part of you. Some of you maybe are musical. Right. And I know you know bands, you know music.
Absolutely. So getting an opportunity to not just practice because of schoolwork, but being able to use that creative part of you to really use it as an outlet, like Gretchen was saying, with sports and physical activities, finding an outlet and creating something out of the feelings that you're having, and also staying in the moment and being able to focus your attention and your energy on that activity.
That's right. So really think about what those activities might be for you, specifically for you, because what is for you isn't necessarily for your friend or your cousin or your sibling, right? It's unique to you. And so what fulfills you? What is it that really calls your attention and soaks you in? And then do that thing. Okay. What about connecting with others? We keep alluding to this.
Yes, and that was one of the things that we mentioned about helping others too. So this is going to pull into that as well. Not only is it good to connect to people that you already know, like in your support network, but also getting out and into the community and connecting to other people who may or may not be experiencing something that's very similar to you. So helping other people helps you to focus your attention on getting that activity done, but also lets you kind of take an outside perspective and feel the empathy towards another person, and thus makes you feel lighter because you are putting forth that energy and that drive to help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And then related is enlisting your support. And we are going to talk actually a lot more about this in just a few minutes. But before we get there, I really want to pause for a mindfulness break. Let's together with Homer, right? Because let's face it, if Homer can do this, any of us can do this, right?
I would certainly hope so.
I would certainly hope so. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So go ahead, and this is probably, just so for your reference, this is probably going to be about 10 to 15 minutes, okay? And so just prepare yourself to settle in and relax, and feel free to get comfortable, and however that is for you, doesn't matter. Some ways that can be helpful are, if you're going to be in a seated position, to actually be seated kind of up on your sits bones, those bony bones in your behind, to get up on those, because actually when you get up on those, it's like your spine just supports itself. And sometimes that actually can help your shoulders relax and come down out of the rafters, right? So you don't have those shoulder earring kind of things going on. And so you can do that. You can actually also lay down in a comfortable position. That would be okay on your back. Typically, you can throw a pillow under your knees if you want to. You can let your hands rest on your belly, or you can lay them out to the side, palms up to the ceiling in a really open kind of a position. But the point is, get into a position that is comfortable and that allows breath just to move freely in and out. And so whatever that looks like for you is okay. If you would like to close your eyes, you absolutely can do that. If that isn't something you want to do, some nice alternatives would be to find a spot on the floor to focus on so your eyelids are still resting easily, or a spot on the wall to just focus on and let your gaze get just kind of loose and heavy. So again, whatever feels comfortable to you, and just allowing that breath, and maybe even just feeling this, like being in this kind of a comfortable position with your breath just moving freely in and out. You don't have to do anything to your breath other than just notice it, and notice it moving nice and gently in and out. So go ahead and now that you're into that position, and just you can really think about your muscles relaxing into the spot that you are. Whatever piece of furniture you're on, or if you're on the floor, just allowing your body to be fully supported. And keeping your eyes in whatever comfortable position you choose, go ahead and bring your awareness inward. Without straining or concentrating, just becoming relaxed and loose. And hearing these guidelines and deciding for yourself what you'd like to take. Just allowing your breath in and out. Very nice. So again, keeping your eyes in whatever comfortable position you choose, you can go ahead and think of a person close to you who loves you very much. It could be someone from the past or present, someone still in life or who has passed. It could be a spiritual teacher or guide. There is no right or wrong. Whoever you choose is just fine. And if you like, you can imagine that person standing on your right side, sending you their love. That person is sending you wishes for your safety, for your well-being and happiness. You may even be able to feel those warm wishes of love coming from that person towards you. Now, if you like, you can bring to mind that same person or another person who cherishes you deeply. And you might imagine that person standing on your left side, sending you well wishes for your wellness, for your health and happiness. You may be feeling the kindness and warmth coming to you from that person. And if you like, you can even imagine that you're surrounded on all sides by all the people who love you and have loved you. All of your friends and loved ones surrounding you, sending you wishes for your happiness, well-being, and health. Perhaps you find yourself basking in the warm wishes and love coming from all sides, feeling filled and overflowing with feelings of warmth and love. And now you may decide to bring your awareness back to the person standing on your right side. And you may wish to send the love that you feel back to that person, knowing you and this person are similar. And just like you, this person wishes to be happy. And so you may send all of your love and warm wishes to that person. You may even be thinking to yourself and sending to them, may you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. May you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. Focusing your awareness on the person standing on your left side. You may wish to again direct the love within you to that person on your left, sending all your love and warmth to that person, knowing that person and you are alike. Just like you, that person wishes to have a good life. You may find yourself thinking, just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease and happiness. Just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease and happiness. You may wish to picture yet another person that you love, perhaps a friend or a relative. And this person, like you, wishes to have a happy life. And you may feel compelled to send that person the warm wishes as well. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. Now, if you'd like to continue, you can think of an acquaintance, someone you don't know very well, and toward whom you don't have any particular feeling. Interestingly, you and this person are alike in that you wish to have a good life. Send all your wishes for well-being to that person. And again, repeating the phrases silently, just as I wish to. May you also live with ease and happiness. Just as I wish to, may you also live with ease and happiness. And you could bring to mind yet another acquaintance toward whom you feel neutral. It could be a neighbor or a colleague or someone else that you see around but don't know very well. And interestingly, like you, this person wishes to experience joy and well-being in his or her life. So you may wish again to send all your good wishes to that person, repeating the following phrases silently. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from all pain. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from all pain. And now in conclusion, if you like, you could even expand your awareness and picture the entire globe in front of you as a tiny ball, sending warm wishes to all living beings on the globe who, like you, want to be happy. Just as I wish to, may you live with ease, happiness, and good health. Just as I wish to, may you live with ease, happiness, and good health. And taking a slow breath in and letting it go. And another slow breath in and letting it go. You may notice the state of your mind and how you feel after this meditation. You may find it helpful to rub your fingers together, to move your legs and feet. And as you feel ready, you may come back to the room and once again be fully present. So for those of you that decided to go ahead and participate, nicely done. Nicely done. It can be helpful to take a moment and just really notice how you feel. And I should have written a note to myself to have you rate how you felt before you started it. But you might remember how you felt before you started it, right? And you might remember now and notice now how you feel now. And so what happened? You know, what just taking a moment to kind of reflect on that and what happened for you during that meditation. We will be posting links to a variety of these sorts of meditations on our resource page. So if this particular one didn't happen to ring your bell, but you kind of like the idea of doing this sort of thing, there will be some other options, as well as I will provide you a link to places where you can go to find more of this sort of thing to be helpful, so that you can find, because people really vary in the kind of voice that they like, the kind of rhythm they like, what they're hearing, the messages, and that sort of thing. And so even if this wasn't resonating with you, there may be some out there that do and would.
Right.
So keep that in mind. I do think, though, that the content of this particular one sets the stage well for thinking about the way in which we interact with others, because it really is about that give and take, that sending out and receiving of help and support. And we keep talking about how important that is in our stress management. We will continue to think about how this is. And the reality is that as human beings, we are wired to need human connections. And Paige, I know you've done some looking at some of the research in this area.
I have.
And they've done even work with monkeys and such,
Yes.
right? And that really speak to how much we really do need connection.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what have you learned?
Well, in speaking with the monkeys, because they're just adorable, and I'm an animal lover myself, they have done research with baby monkeys, and when they are put into cages and all of their physical health needs are accounted for, in that they have milk available to them, and they have a choice between coming out of just a wire mother, quote unquote, versus one that is covered with like a washcloth or a warm cloth of some sort. They always chose to have a milk dispenser / mother that was warm, even if they were getting the same amount of milk and the same substance from the wire milk container.
So this would suggest then that it's not really about meeting just our biological needs,
Right.
but that there's something else that we need.
Exactly. And in other studies, in adoption cases,
Yeah.
where all of the physical needs of the infants are taken care of, so they are changed regularly and they're fed and they get their sleep. If they are not picked up and held by another person, they don't thrive. They don't grow. They don't meet the developmental needs that are required or expected of their age groups, and sometimes they don't make it at all.
And so clearly this is hardwired into us.
Right, exactly. It's something we physically and emotionally need.
It is a need. It's not a bonus. It's not a
right.
It'd be nice if. This is something we actually need. And so hence the reason why we're putting so much time into talking about this, because it is a human need. And people sometimes, I think, particularly if social interactions are difficult or opening up and sharing is difficult for them, they want to try to minimize.
Right. Like, I can just do this on my own. I don't need anybody.
Right. And what we know is that that's not true. And so let's get to talking about this. And so I'm going to actually take a couple steps back and kind of talk about the importance of empathy. Empathy being really the ability to understand the world from someone else's point of view, not agree with the other person's point of view, understand their point of view. Those are two different things, and people sometimes get that mixed up. Empathy is really the foundation for a healthy relationship, and in particular, it's the foundation for healthy communication, which we're going to talk a little bit more about as well. And I think a lot of people have circumstances in which they, like, being empathic is easy, right? It's easy when we get it. Oh, you broke your leg. Oh, that stinks, right? We can relate to that. Oh, your dog passed away. That's sad. I mean, right? It's easy to be empathic in some of those situations that we get and understand.
Right.
And can imagine ourselves in, or perhaps have experienced ourselves, but it's not always so easy, is it, Paige?
No.
When is it difficult?
Well, it would be very difficult to understand and be empathic with someone who you're currently arguing with.
Yes, correct. Someone that you're mad at.
Right.
Someone who wronged you.
Yes.
Those are challenging situations indeed. Absolutely. It's interesting. There's a couple of psychologists, Dr. Robert Brooks and Dr. Sam Goldstein. They say empathy provides the strength to change negative scripts. Empathy provides the strength to change negative scripts. Well, that's interesting, because this ties back into our thinking, right? And all those automatic negative thoughts. So what they're really saying is that empathy gives us the power to change some of that negative thinking that we have. And sometimes the negative thinking that we're having about other people that's getting in our way, that's making it difficult for us to be empathic with them, perhaps them being empathic with us.
Right.
And so learning how to be empathic, even when it's difficult, turns out to be super important. Really, really important. And the reality is that we all have negative scripts that we've learned over time from lots of different sources. Sometimes from our parents, sometimes from our peers, sometimes from the school environment, right? It can come from lots of places. We know it's difficult to be empathic when we're angry. We know it's difficult to be empathic when we believe someone's mission is to make us mad.
Oh, I certainly know some of those people.
Or when we think it's just going to get in our way somehow. Being empathic, if it's somehow going to interfere with our goals. Right? That's another situation in which it's empathic. But what we also know is that we still need to get there, even though it's hard. So how do you do that? Okay, well, one thing is to start to really think about, how does your behavior impact others? How are you showing up in your relationships? So I love to do this exercise, and I would encourage listeners to hit the pause button after we kind of talk about this and really write some of these answers down for yourself, because it's going to actually give you a lot of insight into yourself and into your core values and what's important to you. And it's also going to help you think about, what do you want to do differently in your relationships with other people? So think about, first of all, think about a group of people. So it could be that you're going to do this. What words do you hope your friends use to describe you? So if I go ask them, hey, what words would you use to describe Sally, right? What are the words you want them to use, that you hope that they use? It could be that it probably is that those words are going to be different than if you said, what words do you hope your teachers use to describe you? It's probably, there maybe is some overlap, but maybe not. Or your parents used to describe you, right? So you could really do this activity a couple of different times, depending on which relationships are really on your mind. And so asking yourself and answering this question, what words do I want people to use when they describe me? And make that list, okay? And so do that. And I would even hit the pause button at this point. Stop, make the list, and then hit play again. So I'll give you a second to kind of do that. Okay? So then once you've made that list, now ask yourself this. What is it that I do and say on a daily basis that would inspire people to use those words? This is usually where people go, oh, oh, well, what I want, what I say that I want, and what I'm actually showing maybe don't match.
Right.
And so you can see how this could open up some insight to you. But I've also done this exercise actually with people, if they're really having doubts about who they are, they're not sure who they are or who they want to be. Mm-hmm. And they'll start to generate these words, or they question their worthiness, or they question, am I really a good person? They have all these things. But so sometimes this is actually fact checking. And it's kind of getting to, what are you doing and say? Because, like, for example, let's say somebody says, well, I want people to think of me as kind. I want that to be one of the first things that they say about me, is that I'm kind, I'm nice, I'm a nice person. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are you doing and saying on a daily basis that would make people want to use that word? Right? And maybe it is. And you're kind of, and you're one of those people that has a lot of self-doubts about your worthiness or whatever. And you start to think, well, I smile at people, I say hi to them, I check in with them, I do, right? Mm-hmm. And pretty soon this list is growing. Like, I actually do those things on a daily basis. Oh, so yeah, I guess people would be inspired. Right. Or maybe you're not doing those things on a daily basis. Maybe your anxiety is such that it stops you from smiling at people, from saying hi to people. And it's not because you're not a nice person, it's because there's a barrier in your way. Mm-hmm. Okay, so cool, you've just identified a problem. Right. Now you can move forward with problem solving. So you see how this is valuable, is that this really does help you think about yourself in relation to other people and how you are showing up for people.
Sometimes when people have self-worth or self-image issues, it's hard to think of these generalized terms and what they do on a daily basis. So you can think, okay, well, I want them to think that I'm kind, but I'm not volunteering at the soup kitchen every day. And I'm not, doing all of these amazing, wonderful things. Mm-hmm. But what are some small things that you have done today? Mm-hmm. Oh, I opened the door for that person when they were leaving Target. Right. Or, I smiled at this person because they weren't smiling and it looked like they were having a bad day. Mm-hmm. Just those little things will make a huge difference. And I'm sure that you can come up with at least a couple of them.
Well, and I know that's true because I have the feeling that somewhere along the line you've been the recipient of one of those small kindnesses.
Right. Yes.
And it may have made a difference in your day, mm-hmm. even though it was a small thing.
Right.
And so I think that's really good to think about. All right. So let's take a step back then and reflect a bit. So we talked about some ways of coping. We did a little mindfulness exercise. We talked about empathy. Mm-hmm. Of these things that we just talked about, what's one thing, again, a reasonable, realistic thing that you'd like to do better in one of these three areas? Any one of them. What's one thing? And why would you choose this thing? What's it going to do for you? What's it going to do for your relationships? Is there anything getting in your way? If so, what? And then, what are some things you can do to overcome some of those obstacles? So here we are back to problem solving again, mm-hmm. and really thinking this through. So again, feel free to hit the pause button here. Or if you're able to watch this in segments, because I was technologically savvy enough to figure out how to do this. When you come back, we're going to talk more specifically about enlisting that support team and helping others and communicating in an assertive way. And so we look forward to that. So go ahead and hit the pause, think this through, and then we'll see you when you come back. Okay, Paige, so why again? What's up with enlisting support team and having the help of others? What do we know about this?
Well, we know that resilient people don't know all the answers.
Oh, right.
And so connecting to people, which we are biologically required to do, it is a need for us emotionally and physically.
Yep.
But it also gives us an opportunity to learn from others and pick up those answers that we don't know ourselves.
Okay. All right. So we need to be part of a support team, and we need to have a support team.
Exactly.
We need both.
Right.
Both are important.
Giving and receiving.
Giving and receiving. Much like the mindfulness script we did just a minute ago. Like that. Okay. So this is... So why? Well, you just said why. Because resilient people do not have all the answers.
Right.
You can't and won't know. So stop thinking that you will, right? That's that perfectionistic mind trick that sometimes. But I think, for teenagers, this is their reality, right? They are not yet fully independent. They are, you guys are moving towards independence, but you're not there yet. You still need adults for some things in your life. And I think, and Paige, I don't know if you agree, but I think this is one of the trickier things about navigating this time of life is figuring out when can I handle this on my own or with my own peer support group, and when do I need to enlist more adult help?
Right. And I think that it definitely varies depending on what age or what topic or what group of people you're surrounding yourself with.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. If any of you happen to be doing this in the context of a group, and some of you may, it would be okay to hit the pause button here and just talk about this. Or maybe if you're talking with a friend, you're watching with a friend, to hit the pause button and just talk a little bit about this, because I think there's a lot about knowing that and when and under what circumstances and how do you approach it. I think that actually the how here.
Right.
How do you bring up to someone the fact that you're feeling crappy on a daily basis? How do you begin that conversation?
Right.
Right. And when does it reach the level that you need to reach out to somebody? How do you know? There's that self-awareness.
Not only how do you know when to reach out beyond yourself, but then who do you go to for those different things? Is this I'm going to tell my best friend type of situation?
Right.
Or is this I need to talk to my mom or the school guidance counselor or a trusted adult?
So are there any guidelines that help people kind of navigate that?
I think that there are going to be different situations that are going to kind of determine that. But I think some of the big bullet points or asterisk points here would be if there is any situation that someone's safety, yourself, someone else, a child, if their safety is at risk, that's an immediate go to an adult type situation.
Right.
The other time, I think that you can kind of take some of that insight that we've been talking about into play is if somebody tells you something and you feel overwhelmed or pressured, that sounds like it is too big of an issue for you to hold. And that would be bring to an adult type of situation.
If you're feeling really concerned about their safety and their well-being, it's okay to trust those instincts, because the reality is that when, again, this is what you have control over, right? If you're acting out of genuine concern for someone else's safety and you're going to an adult and in the process breaking their confidence, what choice do you really have if you think that they are, if they're in some kind of danger or in harm's way? Of course you have to act to protect. That supersedes any limit of confidentiality, right? And being private, is that safety is more important. The relationship stuff you can figure out after,
right?
The priority is making sure that that adults can help. And so it may be that you're bringing in your own parents to help. It may be that you have a good relationship with their parents. I mean, again, this is situation dependent, but bring an adult. It could be that you are at school and the school counselor is, the handiest adult available. And that would be a person. It could be that you have a trusted teacher at school that you have a good rapport with, that you feel like is really empathic and understands kids.
Right.
And could be in a position to be helpful. So really think about, and I would even list out who are the adults in your life from whom you can draw strength, who are going to have your back when push comes to shove. Who are those adults?
Right.
Who do you trust? Even if they're not perfect, even if their response isn't ideal, right? Are they really ultimately going to act in your best interest? Are they loving and supportive of you? Who are those people? And really make a list.
And think outside of your home and school too, because there are so many different community leaders that you might not necessarily think of right off the bat, like a coach or a spiritual connection at a church or synagogue that you go to.
Yep, any of those places. So really think about who those people are. Sometimes it's actually friends' parents. I know a number of kids that have good relationships with their friends as parents, and feel comfortable talking to them and going to them. And so I just think that's really, really important to be thinking about. I also think it helps to think about how much are you needing to reach out to your friends to talk about what's bothering you, and how often, and how overwhelmed are you, and how often are you feeling that overwhelmed? Because there's here and there, it's helpful to reach out to friends. If you're finding though that you on a daily basis you're overwhelmed, on a daily basis you're having to reach out to the same people over and over again to talk about how stressed and overwhelmed and anxious or sad for no reason or whatever that you are, that really is an indication that you maybe need more than what your friends can give you. And that would be another scenario in which pulling in an adult could be helpful. And there could be lots of options for what other support is out there and available to you. But that's just something to think about. Likewise, if you are the peer that someone is coming to and you're really feeling, on one hand, glad that you're able to help, but on the other hand, overwhelmed by their stuff, as Paige was saying earlier, it's okay to let them know, this really is going on a lot for you.
Right.
This goes on for everybody, but it seems like it's going on for you a lot more than what is typical. And, have you thought about talking to an adult and getting some extra help and support? It's okay to say that to someone because you're coming from a place of warmth and compassion and empathy and a desire for them to be happy and healthy and whole. And it's up to them how they take that on. But when you're coming from that place, you've done what you can do. You've been a good friend, even if they aren't perceiving it in that moment that way.
Right. And ultimately, that is you helping them.
It is you helping them.
Right.
It is, because you are giving them permission. You are telling them it is okay that you are feeling this way, and it is okay to seek additional help.
Right. It's like making another person another bullet point on that resource list.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, I think we've really given you a lot to think about. Now, let's say you are needing to bring something up with someone, address something with someone, right? Maybe set a boundary. Maybe someone's not treating you well and you don't like it. Maybe there's a teacher that you're having a hard time with, but you've got assignments outstanding and you're going to have to go talk to them about it. Maybe there's something going on at home that you need to be able to talk to your parents about or bring up with your parents.
Right.
And so, how do we communicate about this? And really, there's a lot of ways people do communicate, isn't there, Paige?
There are.
Yes.
There are. And a lot of times they do kind of fall in between three categories with a little bit of variation between all of those different things. But passive, assertive, and aggressive are kind of the three main types of communication styles.
And they're like on a spectrum, right? So,
Yes.
so at one end, you've got passive people that, I don't know, I think they tend to be the hint droppers. And I know as you're listening to this, you're probably calling to mind people, specific individuals who do this, right? They drop hints and they really want you to pick up on those hints. And then if you don't pick up on the hints quite right, they're upset with you. You may even recognize that as being your own communication style, right? That you just kind of want people to figure it out. You'll drop them hints, but you really would like them to please figure it out.
Kind of like conflict avoidant, just very shy, timid, anxious, I want it to be different, but I don't know what to do about it.
Right. On the other end of the spectrum, at the other extreme, would be aggressive. Right.
They're a little bit more in your face about what's going on for them.
That also can be kind of hard to deal with, hard to take. And then you got this middle ground. This nice middle ground.
A little bit of being able to put what you need forward, but being able to do it in a way that is going to be empathetic and heard by other people.
Yeah, I read someplace it was described. So passive people maybe think other people's ideas and thoughts and feelings are more important than their own. Aggressive people maybe have a belief that their thoughts and feelings and opinions are more important than anyone else's. Assertive people, on the other hand, view people on a level playing ground. That what they think and feel is just as important as what other people think and feel, and vice versa. What other people are thinking and feeling is just as important as what they do. And so then you can imagine how this would affect the way in which they engage in a conversation.
Right. It opens the ground for a lot of compromise.
Right. And empathy.
Exactly.
Right. Being able to be empathic that, oh yeah, other people have thoughts and feelings too, not just me. But also that mine are important. That what I feel is important, that how I'm thinking is important and valuable and has merit. Okay, so, healthy communication, being able to speak in an assertive way, and also being able to actively listen, which is an interesting phrase, actively listen, we're going to talk more about that, equals healthy and balanced communication. So how does one go about speaking assertively, Paige?
Well, this is really focusing on identifying what you want, first of all. So before you even broach the subject with someone, identify what is it exactly that I want this person to know. Because I think a lot of times when we're really upset about something, we might just pile on a whole bunch of stuff that's been going on for us. And that's not going to be helpful. We need to speak for ourselves, and we need to stick to the facts about what exactly this is going on. So let's give an example so we can walk through this together. Let's say after school, you come home and mom, just because she's excited about school and she wants to know what your day has been like. And so she asks you a bunch of questions. What did you do today? What did you learn today? Who did you sit by? What did your teacher say? When's your conference? What are your grades? How did you do on the test? Oh my gosh, I am just so overwhelmed. And I just want to go, Mom, leave me alone. And I just want to go to my room.
And people can relate to that. I know they can, because I hear it in my office all the time.
Exactly. And so walking through this, what do I want from this? I want some time to just relax and de-stress, because school's stressful in and of itself. And so I want some time to bring my own stress levels down before I talk to mom.
I need to decompress.
Exactly. And so what are the facts? I'm stressed after school. Mom asks me a whole bunch of questions when I get home. And when I'm stressed and I get more stress piled onto that, I get snippy and I don't want to talk to anybody and I shut down. Those are the facts. So when bringing this up to mom or to anybody, focus on what you are feeling yourself. Rather than starting with what someone else is doing or saying, focus on yourself. I know that some people can relate to this where someone's like, well, you always do this, you always do that. And it puts you immediately on the defensive. You don't want to hear anything that the person has to say. Whereas if this person then says, I feel really overwhelmed after school because it's just been a really long day. oh, wow, I'm listening to you because I want to empathize with how stressed out you are.
Right. You've just created a situation that it's easy for the other person to be empathic to where you're at.
Right.
Right.
And they're listening more.
And they're listening.
They're not thinking about how I'm going to argue this fact.
Right. Right. Right.
So then following that up with what you want from them, they now know you're stressed out after school.
Right.
So Mom, when I come home from school and you ask me a lot of questions, I feel more stressed out because I don't know how to process my own stress and then also deal with all of the questions. And so what I want is if you could give me 20 minutes after school so that I can decompress and I can like kind of get my stress level down, then we can talk and I will be much better at listening and responding to you.
So you guys can probably even hear and even imagine your own parents. And I can tell you, they do want to know that. They actually do want to hear from you that if that's true for you, if you're feeling overwhelmed, they want to know that. They do want to know and understand that.
Right.
And they find it really helpful and actually highly preferable to being snapped at, believe it or not. And so that can be helpful. Another helpful hint, sometimes it also helps, again, in expressing your own empathy towards them. Sometimes you can even lead with, I understand that you really want to hear about my day at school. And you could even throw in there, and I love that you care so much, right?
Right.
So immediately they're like, oh yeah, you get that. Okay.
Right. Oh, you see that.
Right. Okay. I don't have to tell you that because you're already telling me that you know that. So now I know that you know that that's how I feel. Right. And then you can launch into that. So there's different ways that you can approach that. But the idea is that you're thinking not just about where you're at and what you need, but also what does the other person need from you in order to take in what you have to tell them. It's a lot to think about.
Right.
So hopefully this kind of gives you some ideas for how to structure that. Because there's really, these I feel blank because blank. When blank happens, I feel blank because. When you do or say blank, I feel blank because. Between these three scripts, they cover nearly every situation.
Right.
And so if you can just hang on to those and fill in the blanks as needed, you are going a long way in building your assertive speaking skills and being able to deliver. And again, can you stand behind it? If this is how you're interacting with people and this is how you're bringing up and telling people, do you feel like you can stand behind that? Do you feel like you can be okay with how you're presenting yourself to the world? And I think it's really respectful. It's a respectful way of communicating, but you're also standing up for yourself. And so, yeah, I absolutely think you can. And however other people are going to respond to that's then on them, because you can't control them. They have a responsibility also. That if they're bothered by something you're saying, it's their responsibility to bring it to you. You can't mind read, right? And so as long as you are really taking care to what you're putting out there is done in a respectful and thoughtful way, the rest is for other people to come up with. Okay, on the flip side, if you're going to speak, also be prepared to listen. And it turns out there's some ways of doing that are pretty helpful and powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to even talk about listening, because what I think a lot of people can relate to is when you are talking to someone and you don't necessarily agree with them, instead of listening to what they're saying, you're thinking about what you're going to say in response. And in turn, you miss a ton about what is actually being said. Right. Which doesn't allow for empathy.
Right. Or problem solving. Because remember, the first step of problem solving is really understanding the problem. Well, if you aren't actively listening and taking in what the other person is telling you, then you aren't really understanding the problem. And so chances of a resolution to what's going on, what the conflict is, drop dramatically.
Right.
Unless you get lucky and happen to, right?
And pick up on just the right one.
Pick the just right. Or, what else is that you just sort of leave it unresolved. And that doesn't also feel very good.
No, stuffing things in the bottle just leads to problems later. Like dumping, like we said in the other one, where you throw a bunch of different things onto one issue when that never helps anybody.
It doesn't. It's not helpful. Okay, so how do you actively listen? And I know you guys know this, because isn't this sometimes just what you want your parents to do? Like, you don't want them to fix your problem. You don't want them to react emotionally to your problem, right? You just want them to shut up and listen.
Right.
Right? That's what you want from them. Well, guess what? That's what lots of people want. That's what lots of people want. You do. You want that from other people. Other people are going to want that from you. And so you need to develop the skill. Right. Okay, so Paige, how do you do it?
So some of the ways that you can kind of prove to yourself and to other people that you are actively listening is paying attention to all of the different details that are going into the story. And by reflecting, as the first little bullet point there says, you're saying, not in the exact same words or in the exact same order that the person says, but telling them like, oh, wow, you had a really hard test today and you were feeling really overwhelmed. Yeah. Just letting them know that, okay, I heard what you said.
Yep. I hear it. Yep.
And validate at the same time, in that scenario, like, wow, that must have been really hard for you.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I know that was a killer test. That was totally right. If you've experienced it with them, that you can validate that.
It's important to notice too that, or recognize that reflecting does not necessarily mean that you agree.
Correct.
Because sometimes you are going to hear things that you don't agree with, but that doesn't mean that you can't still listen to them and actually hear what they're trying to say.
And one of the things that you can really do that clarify, and this is actually a trick that I do, because believe it or not, I hear things that I disagree with from time to time.
You don't say.
Is I go into reflect and clarify mode. So I'll say to them, I just want to make sure that I'm getting this straight. Okay. So I think what you're saying is, have I got that right? Or, okay, I hear this part, but I'm not quite clear about how that links to this part, right? I'm asking these kind of clarifying questions to them that aren't judgmental, that aren't loaded, that aren't emotional, but that really are the purpose is to just clarify, to flesh out the details. And what it also helps them do is be more thoughtful. It helps whoever is speaking be more thoughtful about what it is they're saying. And oftentimes what happens is that people backtrack then and edit. They hear it out loud. They hear you coming back and they're like, well, actually, that doesn't make sense now when I say that out loud. And you've maybe even caught yourself saying that. Well, actually, now that I'm hearing that, no, that isn't really how I think. That isn't really how I feel. That isn't really what I want. And so it's really valuable. And what about this underlying all of this neutral stance?
That is going to just what you said, that non-judgmental stance, where you hear things, you may disagree, but you don't put judgment or the negative feelings or stances on what you're saying. You are just listening and you are reflecting and responding to what they're saying.
And it's okay to do that, because guess what? You're going to get your turn to talk.
Right.
But you have to listen first. Or you have to give the other person a chance to, it's turn taking, right? You talk, then you listen. You talk, then you listen.
Right.
And when you're talking, be focused on talking well. And when you're listening, be focused on listening well.
Not what you're going to say afterwards.
Not formulating your response and your rebuttal to it. Not yeah-butting everything to death. Well, yeah, but. Well, yeah, but. Well, yeah, but.
Because then means nothing.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. So that's healthy communication. And this is actually also in the adult version of this as well. So if you happen to be doing this and your parents are doing this, this is something that I hope that you will talk with your parents about. And we're hoping that opens some doors for communication, to talk about communication.
Right.
Meta communication is what that's called. Communicating about communicating, right? But I think it's important. It's really important in your ability to access support. Okay. Helping others. We know this is important Gandhi, a wise one, right, says the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. He said this back in 1869.
I know, it's like forever ago.
It's forever ago. Yeah. But yet, I mean, this is how he lived his life. And I know there's times that you guys out there listening have had that experience where you've been really focused on helping others and have maybe discovered something about yourself in the process.
Right. Like maybe you really are as kind as you want people to see you as.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I really take thought to this. Like, this doesn't have to be, this can be little day-to-day things that you're doing. This can be volunteering. This can be helping out around the house and making life easier for family members.
Right.
This can be being a good friend. There's a lot of things that this can be. And you need to decide for yourself, what is it going to look like for you? And how do you want this to be? You know, what calls to you? Because there's a lot of different things that can call to people, and people have different passions, different things that they care deeply about.
Right.
And that's for you to discover for yourself what that is. We can't really tell you that, but you certainly can spend some time thinking about it.
And maybe even experimenting with different things.
Experimenting. Yes. Test it out and see what you think. Because really, how do you know unless you do it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground today. A lot of ground. And I mean, we have covered self-awareness. We've covered empathy. We've covered biology. We've covered, connecting to others, healthy communication, healthy thinking, problem solving. We've done a lot. And my guess is that you guys you're already probably doing a number of these things, and you're probably doing a number of them well already. So some of this is thinking about how do you take what you're already doing well and do it even better? Or are there areas that you really just would like to improve on? And then doing that. And so remembering, so again, starting with something small and manageable. Pick one or two, just a few things to focus on. Thinking about why it's going to help you. How are you going to generate that motivation? What's getting in your way? How do you overcome these obstacles? All of that problem solving, right?
Yeah.
And, again, we will post some of these resources, like this slide, for example, we'll put online as a PDF, so that if you want to have it, just so you can kind of fill it out and take notes, you can do that. Or, if you just want to do it in your notebook, that's okay too. We'll have links to some different meditations, some of the YouTube videos that we weren't able to play. We'll put those on there, so that there's, we'll have some other ways of being able to kind of explore and experiment and figure out what is going to work best for you specifically. So thank you very much for joining us and listening. We're looking forward to our third segment, which we'll also post online in a podcast, but we don't do that actually until April. So we look forward to that. All right. Thanks so much.